Hey everybody, how we doing tonight? Welcome to the show, Paranormal and Cryptid Rabbit Holes. I'm Justin. A lot of people don't realize that Grizzly doesn't come on this show very often anymore as a co-host, but y'all can still give him a shout out. That's fine. Sometimes he pops in the audience. Welcome. I see Little Twisted in the crowd. Hey, Little Twisted, how you doing? Michelle. Nice to see you, Michelle. Sandra. I saw Curtis popping around there. There he is, Curtis. All right. Welcome, everybody, to the show. Welcome to the people that haven't said anything in chat. I'm glad you're with us live. Feel free to join in the chat. Always enjoy having people on the discussion. Little Twisted is saying smash that like button. Absolutely, guys. If you're watching YouTube, hit that like, subscribe. On Bigfoot Outlaw, we have all different kinds of shows for all different kinds of tastes. Check it out. We have true crime, we have cold files, we have UFO stuff, we have psychics, we have stuff from here in the US, we have stuff from the UK, we have stuff all over. We are on all kinds of platforms, all kinds of Facebook groups, and we're heard around the world. So definitely subscribe to that channel, hit that like button. We always appreciate it. Thanks to all the listeners out there that are tuning in later on the different platforms. We appreciate that. Sandra says, nice beard. Hi, brother. Thank you. Sandro, sorry, I apologize. Eyes are a little weak these days. Sandro, thanks. Appreciate it. Been working on it for a few years. All right. So, quick message to the person that asked me about a Facebook post. I'm not going to call them out or anything. But when you click on that Facebook page, it does say it is a satire news group. So always be careful what you believe. Don't believe everything out there, and always kind of look back and do some research on it. Speaking of research, the subject we're going to talk about tonight, I thought this was going to be a quick, easy filler topic. Not a big deal. I'll give you some information and done. But as I started researching it more and more, this has turned into at least a two-parter. I'm confident to say it's going to be a two-part topic. Mostly because I only got so far in my slideshow and what I could present tonight in the hour that we're going to do. So I was really surprised that there was so much research on this. And I've put this under the category of my Fortean Urban Legends, like we've done in the past, where we researched Leif Erikson. Did the Vikings see Bigfoot when they came to America? Be that Canada. We talked about the Lovelock Caves and what the reality was there. Now we're going to talk about the Kandahar Giant and see what's going on there, because this is another one of those urban legends that may or may not be true. We'll have to go through it and let you guys decide that once you get all the facts. But I was really interested to dig into this once I started seeing more and more about it. So it's really out there. There's a lot of information out there. Welcome, Leonard. You know, Leonard, I never know if it's Leonard or you go Leonard. I can see it pronounced both ways. Or I can just call you Leo. Welcome. Good to see you. All right. So let's go ahead and get into it, guys. We're going to discuss the Giant of Kandahar. Was it a real event or just an urban legend? That's what we're going to get into tonight. Excuse me. First time was correct, Leonard. All right. Thanks, Leonard. So it was really interesting what I found about this because I always hear it presented as one person being the person behind it, L.A. Marzulli. He's got some interesting work. I'm not going to say I subscribe to everything he says, but he definitely makes you think. So if you want some more thinking about some interesting stuff, definitely check out his work. But it actually goes back farther than that. So we're going to go over it as fully, as completely as I can, because you know how that's how I like to do things. Any questions that come up, guys, put in all caps in the chat room, please. I'll try and stop and answer as I can, but I always go back and look. So if you put in all caps, it kind of alerts me to it. All right, Giant of Kandahar. That's your classic picture when you look it up. Kind of scary. All right, so the first thing I want to ask is, what have you guys heard about the story in the audience? Have you guys heard of the Giant Kandahar? What have you heard? Somebody in there type out a brief synopsis of what you know about the Giant of Kandahar story. I'm interested to see which version of the events that you're familiar with. Is that Latro? Hey, Latro. Welcome to the club. Thanks for joining us. Seeing a lot of new names tonight. That's always fun. I assume some of you guys watch some of the other shows and just happen to come along with mine. Sandro, very succinct there, bud. American soldiers, Afghanistan attack, red-haired. Well, that's a good summation. There's two different versions that were put forward, so I'm just kind of to see which one's the most popular, but nobody's putting anything in, so I'll just keep looking for it as we go. Tell me the story that you guys have heard. So basically what it is the coalition forces in Afghanistan established a base at Kandahar International Airport. That's where we're basing out of. So it's going to be Afghanistan, early 2000s, it's coalition forces. Latro says soldiers find giants in the caves after a battle. Okay. So story number one, first rendition. A group of Marines were out hunting for Taliban holdouts when they came across a small village where this giant was living. Apparently, the people there were treating this guy like a god of sorts and revered him. The Marines, thinking they were protecting possible extremists, went further up into the mountains to look into the cave system, and that's where the Marines came across the giant. All right, Leonard says, I heard a patrol went missing, and the follow-up patrol looking for them encountered and engaged the giant. Okay, so y'all are getting the basic understanding of the story. Upon making contact, the giant ran to the mouth of the cave faster than they thought a person of that size could and started throwing rocks at the Marines. The Marines responded by shooting at him, and without much fanfare, the giant fell dead. It was only then that they looked around and saw the remains of decapitated human bodies strewn about the cave and just outside of it. The giant's body was brought back to a base and flown off to locations unknown, possibly Europe. Okay, that is the first rendition of the story. Latro brought rocks to a gunfight. Absolutely. All right. We got rendition number two. This one states a group of special forces, Green Berets, were deployed to Kandahar after an army patrol failed to report in at a checkpoint. The Green Berets were flown to the team's last known location, And from there, they hiked the 4 kilometers into the mountains until they came to a nice goat path. Peering around the section of the slope, they spotted the mouth of the cave, then a lot of the rocks and bones laying around. They were able to also see a piece of Army communications equipment. So in this version, they saw the bones and equipment around the mouth of the cave. They decided to prepare in case of an ambush, as they believed that is what had happened. They saw something move in the cave, and then with incredible speed and agility, it ran out of the cage, catching everyone off guard. In a matter of seconds, it was standing directly before them. A man 12 to 15 foot tall. It was a monster with a flaming red beard and red hair that fell past its shoulders. It had 6 toes with gnarled pointed nails, and it wielded a pole that was split and lashed with some kind of a blade. And they call it a pike. So basically it was a spear or a pike. A pike is like a spear that you generally hold on to for fighting instead of throwing. Everyone stood shocked. Then one of the soldiers, Dan, charged at it and started shooting. The creature skewered Dan and hefted him up on the spear. Everyone else started firing. The Green Berets quickly realized that their weapons had no effect. Despite having 308s and 50 cals, they shifted their aim to his head, and that did the trick. After 30 seconds of gunfire, the giant fell dead. They said it smelled like a mixture of skunk and decomposing flesh. They called medevac. A helicopter showed up, dropped some netting, gave orders to load the giant in it. A short time later, a larger helicopter showed up to haul it away. Once they got back to base, they were instructed to write reports with no mention of the giant. So these are the 2 basic stories. I did leave out some of the finer details. We'll get into those later. Those are the 2 basic stories coming from 2 different sources. And right away, you can see some discrepancies between the 2. Okay, so how did this all come to light? Where are these stories coming from? Who's telling these stories? So I made a timeline of how and who the stories came out, how they were released to the public. Obviously, they weren't released by military. They weren't newspaper. All right, so November 7th, 2005, in Coast to Coast AM, Steve Quayle, some of you probably know who he is, tells of being contacted by a gentleman who was an Air Force officer. He described the story in rendition 1, claiming it happened around March 2005. He originally wrote to Steve and later talked to him on the phone. And Steve Quayle gets on Coast to Coast, and his topic is like giants and Nephilim, and so he tells this story, rendition 1, from this guy's letter and then talking to him on the phone. Lori Gibbs, I believe this happened. Then you ask, the body is what? I'm not sure what you're referring to there. Let me go back so I can double check it here. Are you saying where I said it smelled like a mixture of skunk and decomposing flesh? That may be what you're referring to. I said it's not a story, it is an encounter. Coast to Coast shares true encounters. Coast to Coast is a great venue for people telling their stories. But I would never say everything on Coast to Coast is true. I would say there's a good mixture of true and fantastical stuff on there. All right, so that was in 2005. In 2008, Quayle came back on the show, and this time brought the pilot with him. The story did change a little bit, and the pilot revealed some details that he hadn't revealed to Quayle previously. So in this version, the pilot went from 1 troop to 2 troops. I'm not sure what the proper terminology is, guys, whether it's group or troop or platoon or squad. I don't know. I'm not military. So I'm probably using interchangeable words, and if they're wrong, please excuse me. No disrespect meant. This is where he comes out and says, well, actually, there was 2 groups. One went missing, the other one went to find him. And then he gave a little more details, and then discuss more what he was flying and different things like that. And we will get into all that later. But then in 2016, L.A. Marzulli published an interview with a Mr. K, who they later start referencing as the shooter, who claimed to be one of the people in the patrol that killed the giant and relayed rendition 2. Okay, so the second story we talked about with the Green Berets as opposed to Marines, and he's claiming to be one of the people that was actually in the group. And he claimed this actually happened in 2002 and not 2005. So the original pilot claimed it happened around March of 2005. And in the second story, the person that said he was in the group is claiming it was 2002. And the second one, excuse me, choking up a little bit there. The L.A. Marzulli story seems to be the one that gets promoted the most, because I think he's done more promoting with the story. He's really latched onto it. He has several videos about it. Excuse me. He actually has a filmed interview of Agent K, Mr. K. Sorry, guys, my glucose scanner alarm is going off. So pretty much L.A. Marzulli has become the main spokesperson for the story. In fact, a lot of times you'll hear people say it started with L.A., but actually back in 2005 with Stephen Quayle. So that's where the story originates, with these two guys here. Okay. So some specific details that was mentioned in their stories that we can take a look at. In rendition 1, so we're going to analyze each story a little bit, because obviously there's certain things that we can't look at. There's no military records of this. And certain things in the story we can research, right? They give clues that we can look up. And what we're really doing is not trying to prove the story in and of itself, because that's pretty much impossible without, video and all that kind of stuff. And you guys know how I feel about video. But what we can do is look at the details of the story and see if they're true or not, or if they're kosher, right? These are very specific military guys. They're making some very specific claims. They mention different equipment and different things. And so we can look at that. And that's what I've done. And so we're going to kind of analyze both 1 and 2 tonight. And we're going to look at some of the claims, look at some of the equipment that they're saying. Next week, part 2, we'll get into the discrepancies, whether the claims are real or not. And then we'll kind of do that one. Tonight's is going to be more informational, so we're going to analyze everything, get the details down so we know what we're talking about. Next week is going to be analyzing those details and seeing if they're true to life. All right. So when the pilot came on the show in 2008, he gave a lot more details, which is really fantastic. And it was interesting because originally I kept seeing that this pilot flew a helicopter. flew a helicopter. But in analyzing his actual statements, that isn't the case. He actually flew something different. Now, I want to give a shout out here real quick to the Lore Lodge podcast. I got a lot of information from there. Aiden does an amazing job with his analysis. So a lot of the stuff I transcripted off of his show, which he's given permission to do. And then I added a lot of my own stuff to it as well. But some of the stuff is no longer readily available. And so you had to kind of have a way to get, and Aiden's is really, really good at that. So I pull a lot of stuff from him, a couple other podcasts, just kind of as affirmation, and then some of my own research into the equipment. So shout out to Lore Lodge. I know you never ever will hear this, but I want to give you all props because you guys are amazing. The pilot says he was tasked with transporting a 46 Riel pallet loaded with what he told was the giant. The pallet described as 104 by 84 inches. Sorry, my European friends, I do not have the metric on that. They said that he was flying a C-130, which a lot of people referred to as a helicopter. He estimated that the total weight attached to the C-130 was 1,500 pounds. He put the pallet and the rigging at about 400 pounds, leaving the giant to weigh about 1,100 pounds. Again, this is all estimate just based on his knowledge and experience. So he's estimating this giant had a weight of about 1,100 pounds. The giant was so big, they had to put him up in the fetal position on the pallet. He couldn't just lay stretched out. And he estimated that the giant, due to that, was about 10 to 12 feet tall. He couldn't see all of it, but he said he could see a 6-fingered hand and a 6-fingered foot. He estimated the foot to be about 25 to 30 inches. It had light skin, but he said it could have been due to being deceased. But as we know, it's common for, at least in a human, that if they're red-haired, that type of fiery red, they tend to have paler skin. So that would make sense as well. He claimed that he could smell it, and it was a stinky, skunky smell. He said it was brought to him at the base in a CH-47 chopper. Sorry, guys, I'm not sure why that keeps going off on me. 2 seconds, let me check. That should keep it from blowing up. There we go. He said it was brought to his base in a CH-47, and he brought it to another base that was then loaded on a faster jet, his words, and then taken to Ohio. Point of note, originally Quayle had said to Europe. In conclusion, the pilot says it was a large humanoid with immense proportions. On the show, Quayle was trying to get him to agree to all kinds of fantastical different things that he believes in, and the guy was just like, no, and kind of staying away from it, and ended up saying it was just a large humanoid with immense proportions. He wasn't going for all the other stuff. One thing that people that I latched onto was how Quayle said Europe, then on to Ohio, but at the same time, I could see them taking it to Europe, to someplace in Europe first, and then on to Ohio. So that part doesn't really trip me up at all. That makes sense. All right, so let's analyze some of these points here. The 463L Master Pallet. All right. That was the first specific piece of equipment he named. It's a standardized pallet used for transporting military air cargo. It is the main air cargo pallet of the U.S. Air Force, so that checks out. And it's designed to be loaded and offloaded on today's military airlifters. The pallet is 88 inches wide total, 220 centimeters wide, 108 inches, 270 centimeters long, and 2¼ inches or 5.7 centimeters high. Latro says they seem to stage up cargo in Germany. Well, sure. The usable space is 84 by 104, which is what the pilot had mentioned. And that is 210 by 260 centimeters. It can hold up to 10,000 pounds or 4,500 kilograms of cargo, not exceeding 250 pounds per square inch. So if he's estimating 1,100, then they were pushing the limit here on this pallet as far as weight goes. Each empty pallet weighs 290 pounds or about 355 pounds with 2 side nets and a top net. I'm assuming the ropes and other tie downs could possibly account for the other 45 that he was estimating at 400 pounds. If you remember, he was estimating the weight of the pallet and rigging to be about 400. And that's what gave me 1,100. They are built of balsa wood core and surrounded by thin aluminum skin. There are 22 tie-down rings surrounded by the edge, each rated at 7,500 pounds. or 3,400 kilograms. So I got some metric measurements in there for you guys. Sandro says the Bible speaks of these giants, especially the six-fingered toes. Excuse my spelling. I'm a native Dutch. Hey, no worry, man. We don't worry about stuff like that here. No biggie. So yeah, I did a show on Nephilim a while back. You can look it up, check it out. We talked about the giants and stuff. It was more of a show on is Bigfoot a Nephilim, but I really break down the Nephilim story. So check it out. And so here I have a picture of what one of these pallets look like. It doesn't have the rigging and everything, but that is the pallet. So spot on with the pallet with him. He gave the accurate measurements and stuff. All right, so then he mentioned he was flying the C-130. Now, originally, from what I had read and heard on various podcasts, I thought this was a helicopter. Again, I'm not into military equipment. But in researching it, what I actually found out is that the C-130 is the Lockheed C-130 Hercules, is an American four-engine turboprop military transport aircraft designed and built by Lockheed Martin. It is capable of using unprepared runways for takeoffs and landings and can accommodate a wide variety of oversized cargo, including utility helicopters. So this is the big semi-truck of the air for the military. So this one is not a helicopter like I originally thought, but it is a big cargo plane. So it's the one that we see where they're just loading up all kinds of equipment and stuff. So that's the C-130. So what he was saying is that he was flying this. It was brought to him on a helicopter and then loaded onto here. And then he flew it somewhere and transferred it to what he referred to as a faster jet. I believe that would have been someplace in Europe. So I think that's where that Europe thing comes from, is he flew it into Europe. And then from Europe, it made it over to Ohio. And we'll talk about why Ohio here at the end. So he said that the helicopter that flew it to him was a CH-47, which in doing research, that would be the Boeing CH-47 Chinook. It is a tandem rotor helicopter originally developed by the American rotorcraft company Vertol and now manufactured by Boeing Defense, Space, and Security. The Chinook is a heavy lift helicopter that is among the heaviest lifting Western helicopters. Its name Chinook is from the Native American Chinook people of Oregon and Washington State. So this one's the heavy lifter. So it would make sense that they could bring this helicopter out there and have it hover and get it lashed up underneath it and have it brought back to the base to be loaded onto the C-130. That makes sense, right? I think so far we're following, everything's kosher. That would be a picture of it right there. That's your Chinook. The tandem rotors basically means two rotors like that. And then it's got the capability to lift and haul stuff from underneath it. Man, I'm sorry, guys. I'm just not comfortable in my seat tonight. We'll get through. All right. So that's our Chinook. All right. And he mentioned it was the Marine Special Forces, also known. And so this is where it gets a little cloudy. He said it was Marines. He didn't specifically mention Special Forces, but the idea has always been this was a Special Forces group because they were called in. And so it's mentioned that they're Special Forces by pretty much everybody that does it. So we're going to go with that. Keep in mind, this is the assumption, not direct quotes from the guy about Special Forces. So I looked into the Marine Special Forces. They're also known as the Marine Raiders. Were created in 2005 as a component of U.S. Special Ops Command. They did conduct combat operations in Afghanistan and have roles in counterterrorism and information operations. So they were created in 2005. I could not find when. And the pilot story does say it. It does take place in March of 2005, approximately March. What he had said was about 8 months before he was on the show. He was on the show in November, 8 months is March. So March is kind of the target area. Standing so's nobody does research like Justin does. Well, I really appreciate it, man. I do my best. There are definitely people out there that do this for a living and don't have my health issues, and they can spend a lot more time and effort and money into the research. But I do what I can. I try. I know you guys enjoy it. Latro says Dayton, Ohio is home of Wright Pat Air Force Base, is supposed to alien bodies go. There you go. You nailed it, bud. Wright-Patterson Air Force Base. There's also a research entity, Battelle, in Columbus, Ohio. That is correct. Robert Lawton says all special ops are not black ops. You're absolutely right. There's a lot of special ops guys that are not black ops. Different teams. Different teams. I totally agree with that, buddy. And welcome. Standing Stones. I don't know if I said welcome to you. Welcome, buddy. It's been a while since I've seen you. Thanks for popping on. All right, so this was what I found for a picture of the uniform for the Marine Raider Special Forces in Afghanistan. So why I'm showing that to you is the question comes in. Mr. K says they weren't Marines, they were Green Beret. And this guy is saying Marines. So I wanted to look at their uniforms to see how similar they were, because maybe the pilot, he's Air Force, so maybe he's all like, hey, I thought they were the Marines because of their uniform. I don't know. Just wanted to give it a shout to see if they could be mistaken one for the other. But that is the Marine Raider Special Forces uniform, according to what I could find on the internet. So we'll go with it. And what base is in Ohio? That's right. You got it. Wright-Patterson Air Force Base, which is always the one where we hear about them sending alien bodies, UFOs, apparently giants, all kinds of the weird Fortean paranormal mystery stuff seems to end up at Wright-Patterson. So that part was kind of, spot on for him to just to say Ohio. Excuse me. Robert Lawton, ex-Navy quartermaster, thank you for your service. Greatly appreciate it. My father was in the Navy. Unfortunately, I was not ever able to be in the military, although I was contacted by the Air Force recruiter. They were talking about trying to get me into Air Force intelligence and stuff like that, but I already had bad legs by then, so that was a no-go. All right, and there is supposedly a picture of Wright-Patterson, so got to throw that in there. So in one of those hangars, potentially could be allegedly the body of the giant of Kandahar and some UFOs and aliens. I would suggest probably underground, but hey, that's a whole different topic. All right, so that's rendition one, kind of analyzed, broke down by equipment. The equipment that he mentioned is legit equipment. It's there. So everything there kind of matched up as far as that part of the story. Rendition two, a little more detailed, a little bit longer. And we'll get into that one. So Mr. K, he says it was the Green Berets, Army Special Forces group. And originally it was an Army patrol. There was no special designation given, so I don't know if it was, standard Army or, what it was. But they had originally disappeared. There was a complete lack of radio communication from the missing party. Nobody had heard anything. Nobody knew what was going on. There was no distress calls made. There was absolutely nothing. They just failed to check in at one point and then complete radio silence. So they called together this squad troop of Green Berets to come in and check it out. Some of the details he specifically states that we can look into. He states that the giant was 12 to 15 foot tall. So his estimate was a little bit bigger than our pilots, 12 to 15 foot tall. That wielded the 10-foot pike, which we talked about earlier. A gentleman, a soldier by the name of Dan, broke training and charged the giant. Why? That was a big question. I know the other podcasts had the question too. If you are special forces and especially trained, are you going to break ranks, go charging after, and start firing on an enemy or a target that is only carrying a pike, or would you stay under cover and fire from the safety of cover? So that's a big question that we can't answer, but it's definitely something to think about. The team had 308 and 50 calibers. Those were the two specific calibers mentioned. I did hear some brief interview from him, and I'm hoping I can bring that up next week, where I can get like a transcript and write out his words. But according to the stories that I found, those are the two specific guns mentioned, the 308 and a 50 calibers, and those were the words he used, was 308 and 50 cal. All the soldiers broke out. They were shooting at the body's center mass to no effect, but were able to kill him with headshots. A helicopter showed up, dropped some netting, and told them to secure the body. No mention of what type of helicopter that was. Just the medevac helicopter showed up. Second helicopter, presumably to transport the body and men, showed up. He described the second helicopter as a Jolly Green Giant, which is a specific term frequently used for the Sikorsky MH-53. So those are some of the specific details that we can kind of look at, see what's going on. Again, those were directly from the guy. I didn't want to do the story verbatim from them at the start because it would be too long, and then we'd set up half of it just telling each story. See, Latro says, right, Patterson, headquarters of the Air Force. Yep. Robert Lawton, you know who should be looking for a Navy med? They do all the med for these ops. Well, if you know any active ones that would have been in Afghanistan somewhere between 2002 and 2005, let me know. They had to have a corpsman. Yeah. I know they definitely had to have a medical guy on their team. Sandro, speaking as a civilian, but I think seeing a giant isn't in a training program and human panic can take over. You know, and that's what a lot of people say, Sandro. But at the same time, they're trained. And not just like kind of trained. These guys are exceptionally trained, right? And normally, usually, when you have that kind of high-end training and something unexpected happens, you default to reflex and muscle memory as you were trained. That's why they train that way, so they can act without thinking. And then to me, rushing a foe from undercover when they don't have any way to hurt you undercover goes against anything that I would think of in their training. Now, again, I'm not military. I've never been military, but I have done, special training in martial arts and stuff like that, you know, even in football. And you fall back on muscle memory. And when you forget something, that's when training kicks in. That's kind of the point of training. So I see what you're saying and I understand. But at the same time, I don't know. I can't answer that. It's just something to ponder. Robert Lawton asks a good question. Why would they have a 308? We'll cover that later. Definitely. Robert says, again, they would have a corpsman on the team before the giant was even found. Yeah, they didn't specify who the team members were, what it was made of. Got to remember, these guys are talking and they're staying anonymous because they signed their NDAs and all this kind of stuff. They're not supposed to talk about it anyway. So they're not going to give me a breakdown of who's in their troop and what each position is. So I would assume they'd have some kind of medic from some, field, some branch of the military on their team. That just makes sense. Just like they would have different people specializing in different things, right? Just makes sense. All right, so excuse me. United States Army Special Forces, colloquially known as the Green Berets due to their distinctive headgear, is a branch of the United States Army Special Operations Command. So yes, Special Forces for the Army's Green Beret. I found it interesting. I found their core missions of special forces contains 5 doctrinal missions. So this is what they specialize in. Their main core missions: unconventional warfare, foreign internal defense, direct action, counterterrorism, and special reconnaissance. So one of the questions I had was, if an Army patrol went missing, would the military send in Green Berets? If they had no clue what happened, there was no information, no intel on why they went missing. For all we know, their comms broke, no idea. Would they send in Green Berets? So that's where I looked. I was trying to find out that answer here. The unit emphasizes language, culture, and training skills and working with foreign troops, which is part of what we were doing over there. The recruits are required to learn a foreign language as part of their training and must maintain knowledge of the political, economic, and cultural complexities of the regions in which they are deployed. So again, highly trained, guys, highly trained. Other special forces missions known as secondary missions include combat, search, and rescue. Okay, so I can see where that would follow into what happened. Counter narcotics, hostage rescue, humanitarian assistance, humanitarian demining, peacekeeping, and manhunts. So as a secondary mission, they could be doing combat, search, and rescue for the troop, or hostage rescue if they don't know what's going on. So that makes sense. Okay, I can go with that. It's not their main mission, but if they're there, they're available. That is part of their secondary. So far we're kosher. Robert says there are no Corps, Marines, all Navy. Okay. Like I said, I'm not down with military terminology. I'm not sure exactly how it's broken down. So this is the uniform of the Green Berets in Afghanistan. Now, what I found interesting is I found lots of different pictures. And some of them were standardized uniforms like this, and some of them weren't. I read that they were issued standard BDUs. And obviously these 2 guys aren't standard BDUs, so I'm not really sure, but this is the picture of them. And in my opinion, they don't really look a lot like we saw the picture of the Marine Raiders. So I don't think the helicopter pilot would get them confused. The uniforms are different, Sydney is different, so that's a point to look at. Here's another Green Beret uniform set. As you can see, like the other 2 guys in that picture, these are all more khaki desert colored. Okay, the arsenal. The 308. What's the 308? It's a rifle that has been widely adopted by various military branches around the world, and for good reason. Its reliability, accuracy, and versatility make an ideal choice for snipers and other designated marksmen. So they're saying a 308 is a sniper rifle. Okay. Would a mobile Green Beret force have a bunch of sniper rifles on them? That's a question. Okay, there is basically 3 military weapons that use the 308 according to the research I found. There may be more, but these are the ones that popped up on multiple sites and multiple informations. The M24 sniper weapon system, the M40 rifle series is an iconic military rifle that earned its place in the annals of sniper history, and the M110 semi-automatic sniper system. So in researching, what military firearms take a 308, these are the ones that came up. I did not get pictures of them just to make sure I didn't get in trouble with YouTube or any of the other streaming platforms. Basically, the U.S. Army has a long history of using the 308 rifle as a sniper round. Latro says Remington 700 derivatives. Yep. The inventory includes the M24 sniper. This is the Army specifically. System, The M24 is a bolt action chambered in the 7.62-51 NATO round, which I thought was interesting because technically it's not a 308 round, it's a 7.62-51. So my question would be to all of you military guys out there, would they call these guns, the M24 or the other sniper rifles, would they be referred to simply as a 308? Is that the proper jargon for a military man or a Green Beret to refer to those guns by as just a straight 308? Because that's all he called them was 308s. Has an effective range of 800 meters. Basically, goes on to specify why this is a sniper round. All right, so the 50 cals. That was the other one specifically mentioned was 50 cals. Extraordinary powerful, the accuracy beyond comprehension. The 50 cal is an elite weapon of which there is no comparison. This is from a military website. The masterful firearms are made military tough by legendary manufacturers like Barrett and are available in multiple configurations to best suit your long-range shooting requirements. Basically, it is the weapon of choice for military snipers. Again, we're talking sniper rifles. So why, on a search and rescue mission or a hostage situation mission, would they have multiple 308s and multiple 50 cals? Why would they have multiple sniper rifles? Okay, so I got some questions about using these sniper rifles in the mountainous terrain. It's just some basic questions. What are some of the common 50 cal rifles used by military snipers? It said the Barrett M82, M107, and M95. What are the drawbacks? These rifles are very heavy, produce significant recoil, and are more expensive to produce and maintain. So for our purposes, they're very heavy and have a massive amount of recoil. So are these guns that you're just going to sit there and rapid fire after hiking 4 kilometers into the mountains? You know, that's a question I have. Okay, are 50 cals more difficult to conceal and carry in the field? Yes. The size and weight of 50 cals make them more difficult to conceal and carry. Can 50 cals be used by snipers in the mountains? And again, it says, while the size and weight of a 50 cal can pose challenges, they can still be utilized effectively by trained snipers. So again, this is a sniper gun that is very large and heavy. So for me, I call into question that armament. If there's other armament out there that uses those calibers that are more mobile, please let me know. I'd like to know that, and I can add that back in when we go to part 2. So let me know this week if you have any other information on either one of those calibers for military use, especially for Army Green Beret. All right, and then he mentioned the Jolly Green Giant helicopter that came to pick up the Giant, presumably to haul it back to the base. So in researching the Jolly Green Giant helicopter, excuse me, I came up with the Sikorsky S-61R. As kind of the base model. It's a twin-engine helicopter used in transport or search and rescue roles. The developed version of the S-61, the SH-3 Sea King, and the S-61R was also built under license by Augusta as the AS-61R. The S-61R served in the United States Air Force as the CH-3C/E Sea King and the HH-3E Jolly Green Giant. So that's the one we're specifically talking about is going to be the HH-3E because that's what he said was Jolly Green Giant. Is it possible it was a different helicopter that they were calling the Jolly Green Giant? Absolutely, but It is not common nomenclature, and the only thing that I could find with Jolly Green Giant were these helicopters specifically. With the United States Coast Guard as the HH-3F as opposed to the E, they nicknamed it the Pelican. This article covers several different variants. All right, so the SR-61 is recognized for search and rescue and cargo hauling capabilities. So basically, it was able to get into tight spaces, hover really well, be stable for search and rescue. So that part makes sense. The improved HH-3E, the Jolly Green Giant, variant will follow later with 8s built, and with all 50 CH-3Es converted to the standard known as the Jolly Green Giant because of its size and olive green scheme, alluding to the Jolly Green Giant company mascot. The HH-3E feature protective armor, self-sealing tanks, a retractable in-flight refueling probe, jettisonable external tanks, high-speed hoists, and other specialized equipment. And there is a picture there. So that's going to be the Jolly Green Giant, or one version of it, because there's all different color schemes and all that kind of stuff. So that's going to be the Jolly Green. All right. So that is the basic details and analyzation of the two stories. I already got into some of the problems I'm sure you guys picked up. We'll get into more of the issues I'm having later next week. And we'll analyze, we'll compare and contrast the two stories, find out where the discrepancies are, and then find out if all this military stuff is legit. Is it standard for what they're saying it was used for? You guys are already on the ball talking about the armament. Robert Lott says he's asking his son right now, who is in the military. Latro states the 50 BMG will go through cinder block and light barricades. Yeah, they talked about having them being some anti-light vehicle weaponry and stuff like that. Sandro says, that's what I thought. No way a 50 cal is going to have no effect on the heap of flesh. And Latro agrees with him. Yeah, so, but those are the two stories, guys. What do you think? After hearing them, are you on the yay side or the nay side? Lori Gibbs, I want to know what you're thinking. You're a true believer in the story. Nothing wrong with that. Do any of these details or facts change your mind? Do they strengthen your viewpoint? Let me know what you think. That's what this show is about. I'm not going to tell you what to think. I just want to bring you information to help give you guys more informed thoughts on these things, right? Because that's what it's all about. That's what I do. So comments, questions, any points you guys want to bring up in the audience, feel free. We'll hang out here for a few minutes. That went by fast. It's already been just about an hour. Like I said, there's so much more to get into. I knew there was no way I could make this into a one-night show. One of the things I did do, because once again, I'm not a military guy. I have a friend that I'm going to be exceptionally vague about, who is military special forces. He was deployed in Afghanistan, different time frame. So we will leave it at that as far as any identification for him. But I had him listen to a couple of the podcasts, the Lore Lodge podcast, where they give a good breakdown. And then actually had him listen to the bits of actual Mr. K speaking on video, giving his own words. And so I had him analyze it from his military perspective, not if he believes the story is real, simply analyzing the Special Forces techniques, the gear, the procedures, all that kind of stuff. So I will give you what he told me next week as we start looking into the viability of these stories. Sandra, do you have a channel? Justin, this is the channel I work on, man. I'm just a guy. I've been researching anything and all thing weird ever since I was about 12 years old, and probably a little bit before that. I'm an above average reader and above average retention. I'm a speed reader. And so I spent a lot of my youth basically reading anything and everything I could on the Fortean subject, whether it was Bigfoot, whether it was UFOs and aliens, weird happenings, Spring Hill Jack, Madagascar's clowns, dinosaur sightings, pretty much anything and everything weird, strange, and unusual that I could find. Internet age comes along about 16. I discovered the BFRO and Cryptomundo. So I devoured the BFRO database for sightings. I read through as many of those as I possibly could and followed Cryptomundo for ages. And essentially, I've read thousands upon thousands of reports of Bigfoot, Dogman, and just any kind of things that you can think of. And with my reading retention and reading comp, I can't say I remember everything word for word. I don't have an eidetic memory, but I retain the information. And so I can speak back to something that I read a long time ago. So that's kind of my background on this. I spoke at a few events. Talked to Grizzly, was on his original show a couple times, and then he offered me a spot here on his channel. So this is it, Paranormal Cryptid Rabbit Holes. We usually do live Thursday night, 10 p.m. Eastern. On occasion with guests, we're going to start doing different times to fit their schedules more. But this is it. This is me. This is my channel. See you next time. Really enjoyed it. Thanks, man. I appreciate it. Hope to see you around more. If you're into it, check out some of the other shows on Bigfoot Outlaw. Latro says there's a fun Special Forces TV series called The Unit. Do some searches and you'll find it free. I have DVD pack 69. You know, I got to be honest with you, man. I'm not a huge military guy as far as watching shows. I do enjoy some, but they have to really keep my interest. But I'll check it out just for you. Robert saying the sunset, our hogs had an M60. Need a little more clarification on that, buddy. And then he says the 50 is an M2. Yeah, that was one of the ones mentioned. Sandro says, I'll try. I'm from Belgium. It's early in the morning. You don't always have to come on live, brother. We record it. You can always check it out later. Underneath my name here is my email. Free to email me, Tennessee Sasquatch 21, tnsasquatch21@gmail.com. Or you can find me on Facebook, Justin Ducker. Look for the beard and the hat. I'm always open to friend requests. I'm always open to chat. Send me messages. I'm always about it. Anybody else? Any other comments? Standing Stones, you got anything? Twisted, you went quiet on me. Lori? Curtis, I saw you there. Anything else, guys? Comments, questions, observations? I'm going to shut it down if I don't hear from y'all soon. Quattro, thanks. I enjoyed having you here, Robert. Stay safe, stay free. Absolutely, guys. Thanks for coming on. Appreciate you. Come back, check us out. Stay in touch. Standing Stones, good. Thanks, bud. Muchas gracias. You're probably trying to say muchas gracias. Por nada, mi amigo. All right, guys, coast to coast around the world. I appreciate you. Love y'all. Come check us out again. We will catch you on the flip side. We're going to go out with my favorite outro. I need to get a clip of just these bloopers because I think they're hilarious. We will see you guys next week with part 2 on the Giant of Kandahar.
It's a grizzly.
Should we get out of here?
No. We're gonna watch and listen.
Action.
It's a grizzly.
Oh, shit, should we run?
No.
Action.
It's a grizzly.
Oh, should we run?
Okay. It's a grizzly.
Are you sure it's not a chipmunk? Action. No, I'm out of here. Action.
It's a grizzly.
I'm out of here.
Huh. Maybe it is a chipmunk. It's a grizzly.
Are we gonna die?
I don't know. We're just gonna sit here and listen and watch.
Let's get out of here, maybe.
Fall!